So as far as the sibling education, whatever you earn with that throughout your all the way up to 12th grade, basically was to fund your own education. So each sibling pretty much from that time pretty much was able to save somewhere around three grand. I had a bank account from I think about 5 or 6 years old, and then every time I made money picking coffee and all that, it all went into that. That 3 grand allowed me to at least complete my AS degree from a technical school in LA. But I went day and night to school, and then to get a degree in electronics technology, which was fairly pioneering at that time, because we barely got into talking about learning about the silicon chip. It was a new invention. Before then, it was simple transistors, but now, on a monolithic, hundreds of transistors on that single silicon chip was something just invented, basically. And both courses was completed at the same month. So, right after that, I wanted to see how that diplomas could find me a job. So I got into my suit, and that's a normal way of going in for an interview back then. Anyway, borrowed my friend's, my roommate's car, and first the closest one was piping vessel company as looking for a draftsman, and then they were heavy into building desalinization plants in the Middle East. So I took the exam, showed my work that I did in school, and then they said, okay, come report Monday. Monday you're hired, and come work to me that Monday, that subsequent Monday. Then I said, it's not every day that I'm in suit and I don't have a car, so I better take advantage of it. So I went clear across town. The drafting job was in Bellflower, close to Anaheim. But I said, okay, I looked in the newspaper, LA Times, and I looked and see, oh, there's a job only for electronics technician. So it was clear across the other side of town, close to the airport. But anyway, I went there, took the test. Same way, they said, oh, you're hired. You come work Monday. So after that, I just sat in the car and said, well, how am I going to do this now? But anyway, I selected the electronics job. And then, but quickly, it was a draft era. So a letter finally came, they finally caught up with me. Uncle Sam finally caught up with me and said, to report down Broadway for your physical. I worked about 6 months maybe at the job. And then basically that was helpful, because when you get drafted and have to go in the military, when you come out of the military, your employer have to give back that same position or equivalent. So that was nice to be guaranteed one job when I came back from the service. So it all worked out well. But anyway, I gotta tell you, man, when I reported early in the morning down in Broadway, downtown LA, and then everybody took the physical, and then we took a bus ride from downtown Broadway all the way up to the Monterey, Fort Ord. But along the way, some people were married, and then their wives or girlfriends were running alongside the bus, saying, don't go, don't leave me, and all that. So by the time we left there about 4 something in the afternoon, So by the time we reached Monterey, Fort Ord, was like 11 something, 11 o'clock or something. So, all the drill instructors, that, was supposed to receive us, they went home. So we stayed in a temporary barracks for that night until next morning. But next morning was a rude awakening because one guy, and he couldn't anticipate his life as a soldier. Draftee is only 2 years. If you volunteer sign up 3 years or more, but draftee is only 2 years. Couldn't anticipate that kind of life as a soldier. He hung himself in the bathroom in the wee hours because, like I said, we reached there at 11 o'clock, and then hung himself with his own necktie. And so there was a big investigation next morning. We took a series batteries of tests and where you good at and all that. Of course, I had my degree, my 2-year associate's in science degree in electronics technology. So right after basic training, they didn't send me to any army school to learn electronics. So they put me on a job at Fort Knox, Kentucky. At that station, they had just put together the very first General Abrams M1 main battle tank, which became very useful in Iraq. You see the big battle tanks in Iraq. I worked on the very first prototype, and they wanted to see what breaks. So you go over the recommended speed limit. I think if you look at the M1 General Abrams M1 tank today, they say don't exceed 45 miles per hour top speed. But they said, the engineer said, go take them up 60 and see what happens. See what breaks and all. But you will really stress them out. Three shifts for months on it. I was there 6 months, for 3-4 months, non-stop. First shift comes on, comes back, we wash it down. Second shift goes out, put in another 8 hours, comes back, wash it down. The third shift comes on and do the same kind of tricks. So want to see what breaks and all that. For months on end, we did that continuously. And, man, we really had fun with that. We had one whole area of backyard of 400 acres to run the battle tank course. And then, so we would play around. We would set up small berms, and we go gunning that guy full speed. And we hit the berm, that big 60-ton tank would be flying in the air. And then to make it even more exciting was firing that big cannon, main cannon, and then get a joyride while flying, with ricocheting action of that cannon. Yeah, good fun. Had a lot of fun there. I enjoy it. And I thought, wow, all the guys around me, they said they've been there forever. They were released from duty they got out of service right there. First station there, and they ended up being their first and last station. So but 6 months down the road, I had orders to go to Vietnam. So anyway, and I ended up over there. But I was working, my military occupational skill was working on prototypes, weaponry, so electronic related, So, and that's the best way to test them out is right there in the real action, real war, Vietnam War. So some of the things were what the spin-off from all that prototype equipment is like night vision goggles or binoculars that it's available to hunters and others, surveillance kind of. It's what I worked on, those early models of it. One other equipment, and that's how I got the Bronze Star, is by fixing this radio. This radio is not the simple communication, radio. It was a radio specifically to call in the coordinates of where they want heavy artillery to be, one shell to be sent over there. so to soften up the area. So if you don't have a good reliable radio, you might be they might be copying down a wrong coordinate. Like back then, never had GPS, so GPS quickly but automatically gives you the coordinates. But back then didn't have, so the operator had to call in X and Y coordinate, and do all that. So it was so critical that the Army felt that if that radio is not functioning, nobody goes out to do a search and destroy, to minimize casualty. So, infantry, they know that their days are numbered, basically, and to live another life, to live another day, they would purposely vandalize my radio. Even I've seen bullet holes and saying, "Oh, we picked it up from the enemy," but they probably shoot them just because that would give an automatic 3-day fly down from the DMZ down to Saigon, where the big Army depot was, where I worked, and then 3 days, one day to fly them down, give me 1 day for repair, 1 day to fly back, and then back into the jungle. So, sometimes, you think, oh, 1 day isn't enough. So they can have all those days off. As long as the many days that I need to fix them, they're gonna be away from the jungle for that period of time. But I did pretty well, and that's why they awarded me for the Bronze Star. Whereas Uncle Richard, because of his gallantry action in Italy, he got the same award. And that's for the Medal of Honor being the top medal awarded by the military. Bronze Star is number 6, and from the 6th medal on up to the Medal of Honor, in the back, they engrave it in your name because it's a personal award. I worked in a depot throughout that tour, so it wasn't close to the action, fighting and all that. Yeah, I went up twice to Da Nang, way up north, to retrieve some radios, but that's how close I was, to the fighting. But so had 2 other Hawaiian kids, from different, I don't know what island, I can't even remember now, but we were all working in the depot. Yeah, we wanted to make some fun, we wanted to see some action or something, whatever. So by the time I was there, it was trimming down, slowing down, reducing, because the Tet offensive in 1968, we got hit real bad, had a lot of casualty. Although we won that battle, then the newspapers and all that stateside reported all this heavy casualty, and that's when all the hippies and all the people, protesters against the Vietnam War, really pressured Nixon to end this thing. So to start that slow departure, basically, they called it the Vietnamization program. It's like what we did prior to leaving Iraq. For them to continue the fight, we gave our equipment, maybe some training to them, but you cannot over a period of couple of months tell them to fly the Apache, helicopter and all that. It's something that it took a number of years to become a pilot, you know what I mean, for a chopper. So same way here, electronics. You talk in Vietnam, technology back then, third world didn't grow up with. Of course, even for me and the U.S. Army, electronics was kind of pioneering at the time. So you tell one guy, hey, take over my job fixing this radio. They weren't interested at all, And this particular South Vietnamese Army soldier that was assigned to me to continue the repair of my radio and all that, maintenance of the radio, he kind of like had different ideas, you know. He wanted to be friends with me. We were all issued ration cards. You can only buy, I don't know, one carton of cigarette per month or something like that. You know what I mean? I was a smoker, but this guy, what he wanted to do, this Arvin soldier wanted to do was, he tell me, you go buy cigarette, you know, for me, you know, and then they would flip it and then sell it more than what he would pay me on the black market, you know what I mean? Things like that. So I tell him, okay, I buy you cigarette. You get me three, two other guys here, two other Hawaiians. You get me 3 Arvin uniforms, because curfew was for the base. They secure the gates at 8 o'clock at night. You come in 9 o'clock or whatever. I mean, you stay out the rest of the night. If you come in after 8 o'clock, you stay out of the fence until next morning when they reopen the gate. They will reopen the gate because we use all the local national to clean the barracks, polish our shoes, wash our clothes, iron our clothes, and all that. So you gotta come in with that bunch, you know, at 8 o'clock in the morning. Okay, so okay, we got the uniform. So you go out when the gates open. We go out, and then, you know, right there outside the fence, walking distance, all the bars, you know, they, you know, make some money. So we went out as Arvin soldiers. You know, they don't check the ID when you go out. You're only coming in. So we go out with the with our regular uniform, change, and then go to the bar. 2 o'clock the bars close, but the MPs would come to the bar around 12. You know, give you 2 hours to get back in. So, but I don't know what happened. No way you come into the gates after 8 or 9 o'clock. Anyway, so okay, it was fine. Had some MPs come in. We were having drinking with the barmaids and all that, and then they just passed on. They think we were, you know, we all Orientals, you know, the 3 Hawaiians. So MPs passed by at this table, and then okay, we passed that, you know. Then, but the barmaids kicked us out at 2 o'clock. So from 2 to 8 o'clock the next morning, we had to, you know, no taxi. Where you going? Anyway, if you get a taxi, where you going? The gate is closed. So virtually, you just stay outside and then expose yourself to mosquitoes. And then this guy really was sensitive. Next morning, just like he had some kind of allergy, rash buildup. You know, that much mosquito stung him, you know. He said, so no way, forget about that. So anyway, I did my stint 1 year, and maybe about a month before I flew back to the United States, completing my 1 year tour. This soldier, he was so frustrated because he wanted to extend, and then the commanding officer didn't want to, and the last couple of days before he was scheduled to fly back to the real world, he shot himself. He pulled a guard duty, officer's charge of quarters they call it, and then he blew his head out with the 45 that he gets assigned, you know, security guards, charge of quarters, on the very desk of that command, of our command. Oh, blood splatters next day, all. But you know, very unfortunate. One person, how I started my military service, one person couldn't anticipate being a soldier for 2 years. This guy wanted to stay, but he couldn't. He wasn't given permission. He decided to take his own life. But yeah, quite a bit of casualties, 58,000. Coming back from Vietnam with only 2 months left, no sense be stationed somewhere in 2 months after you do, you know, go you know, check into the base and get all the uniform and all the stuff, and it's ready to get out again. So So they released me early. Throughout my my term in the military, U.S. Army, my parents did not tell my grandfather exactly where I was. It just an APO address, and nobody. It can be in Germany, it can be anywhere, you know. Until I was safely home that, and then got out of the military. Just for that reason, my grandfather threw a party. And then, you know, throughout my year tour in Vietnam, there was no such thing as bottled water. So, you know, it's hot over there, hot and humid, monsoon type of weather. So you drank a lot, you know, to not dehydrate. But, you know, you cannot be drinking 6 cans of soda. That's a lot of sugar per every day. So everybody forms a habit of the only safe liquid to drink is drink beer. So you kind of like, I was getting used to drinking 6 cans per day. Well, of course, mostly after I get off work, you know what I mean? So I thought, I can handle, because my grandfather was, if my grandma allowed it, he would drink a whole cup of wine or whiskey, whatever. So I figured, me too. Every day, you know, 6 pack, nothing. Well, come home, oh, the party, and you go 1 for 1, 1 for 1. Oh, beer run out. Oh, or he start bringing out his own beer supply. I mean, what do you call, whiskey supply. He want me to he put me on the table when he was in the 70s at the time. Well, he put me on the table. I thought I could handle it, but no. But anyway, he said, where were you? I said, oh, I was 1 year in Vietnam. Yeah, he couldn't believe it. No, he said, nobody told me about. Yeah, I'll show you a citation. My medals, my Bronze Star medal citation, and then, you know, all my life, you know, for a young time, when I go into his room, because I used to give him the electronic therapy, you know, electric shock to his muscles to, you know, to flex it and all, and you can crank them up. You can crank up the voltage. And you gotta wet the contacts. And I put them on behind his leg and all that, in all that places area. And one time, fool around, crank them up. And then I put them on, apply it, say, oh, Hidoi! And that means, oh, that's too high. Oh, okay. But anyway, for a young time I was doing, you know, he virtually babysat me during my young years, because until I was able to work alongside in the coffee field with my parents, because my parents were, you know, they were busy picking coffee. So my grandfather on his mule would babysit me. So for young days I was riding a mule at least, you know. He never got a driver's license, so, you know, that was his mode of transportation. But anyway, so the next day I bring down my citation, and then a couple of days later I go visit him again, and then he had that citation framed in his room all his life. Not a single picture of his wife or all his children, but that day I look, wow, he had made his own Hawaiian lei around my basic training picture, and then the citation was properly framed. I said, oh. So even till today, in my album, I have the original ticket that I was issued to get that Freedom Bird flight back to the real world. Man, I came back to Washington. I can't remember even what base was that. It's in Washington State, but oh, everybody came out of the plane and then kissed the tarmac to be back in good old United States. Then from Washington, they flew us down to, I flew down to Oakland, because I used your dad's dad and mom's apartment as as my final. I didn't want to go back Hawaii, you know. So I just used your mom and dad's Army Street address, and so the nearest location, military location, was at Oakland. So from there, I took the bus ride to the house in San Francisco. I think I stayed there for a couple of months with your mom and dad, and then finally, with that, that guarantee that, oh, by federal law, when you get discharged, you are authorized to get your old job back, or similar position. Then when I went back, of course, because the war was going down, the products that we were manufacturing was slowing down too, because for the war efforts, So they said, oh, by law we gotta give you this job, but would you mind accepting a position down in Mexicali? I said, well, I've seen word in Vietnam where it says, I've been to hell. Vietnam is hell, so I've been to hell, so I'm the meanest mother on earth. You know what I mean? Kind of that slogan. So I said, oh yeah, I came from Vietnam. Nothing should haze me, And then so I on my own I accepted that job instead of working in LA. I didn't formally go in make use of my GI Bill. My first couple of courses was ground school to get my private pilot license. So instead of taking the normal baccalaureate courses, and so I got that out of the way. Me and 5 other people bought a old 1957 Tri-Champ, tandem seating kind of. Was cheaper that way than to rent one airplane to get your license. And as soon as everybody got their private pilot license, we sold it to another group that was interested in getting their license. So it was a good deal. Yeah, so we flew in and out of Imperial Airport, and then for the cross country, you got to do one cross country. So we flew into Lindbergh Field in San Diego, and then once we got that, I couldn't get my medical certification because of my vision, so that ended that. I didn't renew it. Having got that out of the way, then I started to apply for, I studied at college, so it's the AAS or AA degree, and then moved to Calexico. They had that San Diego State University branch campus, so I completed my baccalaureate, and then went on to, that was all funded by the GI Bill. They even subsidized my 5th year to get my teaching credential. Somehow I finagled that. Usually it's only guaranteed to get your baccalaureate, and then so I got that, and then I got to take it back. I didn't get a full ride all the way. So actually, while I was getting my fifth year certification, my wife was supporting me in her meager job, at that company where we worked. But it was only for a semester, so then we got married. Once I got that out of the way, that's when I got married, and then we lingered there for another 5 years, because I graduated in '75 in 1980. December, just couple of days before Christmas, we pulled steak from Mexicali and came back here. It was called Vanguard Electronics, and we made RF coil products, RF coil transformers, and for the radios. And in fact, some of the coils and inductors that we made was using that radio that I maintained. But over there in Vietnam, the policy is you change the whole module. You don't go to component level. Even if the coil that I'm really familiar with because I was making it before I went into the service, you don't go and replacing that particular defective coil or whatever. You send the whole module. So it's mine was, can you say, swap them out, and then remove and swap them out with a new one, and then keep swapping out the whole modules. At one time that idea was with TVs too, for the technicians easier, but now it's all on a monolithic printed circuit board. But back then, RCA used just swap out modules. Head technician, head testing department technician.
And when you first went there, did you speak any Spanish?
No, I did take Spanish in high school, but very poor grade. Yeah, but.
And Auntie worked directly in your department?
In my department, yeah.
And so when you met her, did you know right away that you liked her?
No, I didn't. She wasn't my first girlfriend. Another lady was there.
A different woman from work or somewhere
Yeah,
else?
from work.
Really? Well then how, at that time, Auntie didn't speak English, right?
Hardly, yeah.
So so you had to learn enough Spanish that you could talk to her?
Conversation, yeah.
So
I think she started English school right there too, because of our,
Well, so Auntie says that when you asked her out, she said she felt like she couldn't say no because you were the boss. Is that true?
No, not really.
So once you started dating, you guys really hit it off?
Yeah, and was very strict too. You don't go out without a chaperone. Nowadays, you go by yourselves, but back then always chaperone, either Lupe or mom. Her mom was always, and that was kind of hard because in a Corvette there's only 2 seats.
So what, you had to take 2 cars then?
No, I mean they both sat in the passenger seat.
So then how long were you dating before you got engaged?
Gee, about over a year, no? Yeah.
And then how long before you got married?
After about a year.
So basically 2 years from the time you started dating. And in that time, did you?
Of course, I knew her in my department for over 3 previous years. 3 years.
Oh, okay. So she didn't come over here to Hawaii until you got married?
After we got married in Santa Fe, and then we came back here a couple of days before in 1980. So because your aunt was marrying a non-Catholic back then, basically you have to get permission from the local church. So because the local church, the father, the reverend goes to investigate what kind of background I had. So they went to talk to mom and dad, and then they were all scared because they never ever talked to a reverend, and then usually in that case maybe something bad happened to me, you know what I mean, that you're given the final rights or whatever, kind of thing. So they got scared. But when the reverend said, "Oh, I'm here because your son wants to get married to a Catholic," and then they thought, "Oh, well, I guess it's a change for the good, you know what I mean? Because I had so many vices back then, you know, driving, four-wheel driving, Corvettes and all that, you know. So maybe they think Auntie would straighten me out for the better. Yeah. But so this past July, we went back to that same church to rather reconfirm, to redo our marriage vows. And so the present Reverend, you know, did a small ceremony for us. Yeah.
And that, what year anniversary was it?
40th. Yeah. So looking at that, when you know, my parents didn't attend the wedding, yeah, in Mexico. So, but they had all set up because our honeymoon, of course, we came to Kona, and then they timed it so that when we were here on our honeymoon, the grandparents, my Malka grandparents celebrated their 60th wedding anniversary. And I said, oh wow, it was a little bit intimidating because we just starting out, and then here you see a couple that have completed 60 years. And then, but hey, I'm 2/3 there, 40 years already. Yeah. Another 20 and I'll catch up with them. You know what I mean? 10 more is hopefully easily very something accomplishable. In 10 more years I'll make 50. With the grace of God, yeah. Look at the face, man, the expression.